channel. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very requested in Hearts of Iron 4, which is tanks. So there are a lot of videos over YouTube explaining how to use tanks, but I'm sure this video won't leave a single question in your mind on how to use tanks. First of all, we're going to jump straight into the research tree, take a look at the tanks. So, what are tanks? First of all, we all know that tanks were introduced to warfare during World War I by the British on the Western Front, and then were developed into much better technology. Here we have the Hearts of Iron 4 tank research tree. So, as we all know, tanks are monsters, and in Hearts of Iron 4, you'll not be surprised, that tanks are the way of winning the war. So, we're going to be straight up explaining how to use tanks and what are the types of tanks. In Hearts of Iron 4, there are 4 different types of tanks: the light, the medium, and the heavy tanks. And there is also what we call a modern tank and the super heavy tank, but they are adjacents of the medium and heavy tanks. But still, we're also going to count them. If we count them, there's 5 different types of tanks, including the modern tank and the super heavy tank. So, in Hearts of Iron 4, where all the nations have their, not unique, but all of the nations have tank trees, and almost all of the nations can build tanks, because tanks are not really hard to produce, they're not like aircraft. So, the game kicks off with the 1918 The Great War Light Tank. So as you can see, the Leichtraktor is the German experimental tank, but as you look at other nations' research trees, you might see that this is called the Great War Tank. So these were the first tanks that were ever used, and they are pretty much just, a gun attached to a tractor. But then, once we come to 1934, this is where the thing starts kicking in. Here we have the light and the heavy. So, most of the nations have light tanks researched, unlike the normal countries. Most of them have light tank research. And the heavy tanks are optional, but we're going to be showing them all. So, light tanks. What are light tanks? We're going to straight up take a look at what it's for. It's got 4.0 defense, it's got 26.0 breakthrough, 80% hardness, 13 soft attack, 4 hard attack, 10 maximum speed, 10 armor, 10 piercing, 80% reliability, 2.4 fuel usage, and 8 production cost. And it only takes 2 steel to produce the first light tank. Well, now we're going to be talking about what all of these elements are for. Defense, as you all know, as it says here, how many enemy attacks a unit can attempt to avoid while on the defensive, which means how effectively can this division defend against the enemy divisions without letting them push it. Then we have the breakthrough. As we all know, breakthrough is we're going to be trying to make a quick breakthrough, we call it. And breakthroughs are literally causing an opening in the enemy front line and just rushing through there. We call it a breakthrough. And breakthrough, it's got 26%. So it can 26 has the not the best amount, but it's really good for light tanks because light tanks are mostly used for different things. We're going to be talking about it. 80% hardness. So what is 80% armor? Hardness represents how much of a division is made up of armored or at least protected vehicles. So this is the hardness that you have to look at to see how much protected your vehicle is. Then we have the soft and the hard attack. So what is soft and hard attack? In Hearts of Iron 4, we have, mostly 2 elements of divisions. The infantry divisions and the armored divisions. The infantry divisions, which are, literally just men on the front line, are soft divisions. And tanks are hard divisions. So soft attack means how much you can attack enemy infantry divisions. So how much hardness, the less the hardness, the easier the attack for the light tank is. And hard attack is towards tanks. So as you can see, 4.0 is very bad. Looking at the heavy one, it has 12 hard attack, which means it's very easy for heavy tanks to attack other tanks. Meanwhile, it's not the job for the light panzers to do. It's got 10 kilometers per hour maximum speed, which is an amazing factor. Because in Hearts of Iron 4, speed is literally everything to make a quick breakthrough and make an encirclement against the enemy. Armor is how much piercing can we, retaliate against. Here we have the piercing, how much we can pierce against the enemy, and this is how much we can defend against the enemy piercing. It's the same amount. 8% reliability. So the reliability is how likely the tank is going to die. If the reliability is really low, the tank or the like anything on the game, if the reliability is low, it means you're going to lose so much of it. If the reliability is high, you're not going to lose so much of it. Like let's say, 10 divisions of enemies are right now attacking your front line. You're of course going to start losing guns and etc. But it's going to be really difficult for you to lose so many tanks. As you all know, hardness. This is where it has to do with reliability. So tanks have much higher reliability, as you can see, compared to other types of equipment. Like normally, guns have more, but you're going to start losing equipment after some time, and it's very difficult to lose tanks. And this is only the first tank upgrade, so reliability is kind of low. These also keep going with the different semi-tanks, of which we're going to be talking about in a moment. So this is the light tree for the German Reich. As you can see here, we got the Panzerkampfwagen 2, Panzerkampfwagen 1, and the Leopard. And as you can see, all the stats keep going up as we go up on the tank. As you can see, more speed, more soft attack, more hard attack, hardness stays the same, more breakthrough, more defense. Now, we're going to be moving on to the medium tanks. So what are medium tanks? When we say light tanks, we can all agree that light tanks are attacking infantry, very quick, very usable for encirclement. But medium tanks is what you're looking for. If you want something that can both attack enemy tanks, both make breakthroughs, and at the same time can be really quick. So this is a medium tank. Medium tanks also require tungsten to be produced, which is another important factor. As you can see, they are much difficult compared to light tanks. As you can see, there we go, 4 defense, 5 defense, 26 breakthrough, 36 breakthrough, 8%, 9%, 13 soft attack, 19 soft attack, 4 hard attack, 14 hard attack. This is what I'm saying. Panzerkampfwagen 3, which is the medium tank, has more soft attack and more hard attack compared to a light tank, but it is slower, which is a very determining factor in Hearts of Iron 4 because, as just I said, it's all about speed. You have to be very careful. At the same time, we're going to be taking a look at the heavy tanks. So the heavy tanks are literally the monsters of Hearts of Iron 4. Heavy tanks are really overpowered in most of the things, but they're really bad when it comes to speed. Panzer 1 has 10 kilometers per hour speed. Meanwhile, the Großtraktor has only 5 kilometers per hour of speed, which is really bad because, it's really difficult to make encirclement with heavy tanks, but at the same time it can help you create a very nice breakthrough, and then you would just literally spam your light tanks in there and just start spreading everything out so you can get a quick encirclement against the enemy. It has much more hardness compared to both the light and the medium tanks. Because you're only 80% towards 95% hardness, so it's really difficult to lose heavy tanks. And reliability at the same time is the same, but we're going to be looking at that by the doctrines. So what we're going to be also looking at is the production cost. As you all know, light tanks and heavy tanks of course have a very large production cost difference. You can only produce a light tank for only 8 production costs, meanwhile you can only produce one Großtraktor with 25 production costs. So it's going to take so much time to produce heavy tanks, and it's going to take so much of your factories. Let's say, here's the ratio. Not really mathematical, but let's say you're producing 20 Panzer 1s with 15 factories, on the maximum production reliability and the production speed, you can actually go up to that. But with 15 factories, you can only produce at most around 5 heavy tanks a day. There's so much of a difference when it comes to the production cost. We're now going to be looking at the real monster of Hearts of Iron 4. I've been using the monster for so much. I've been using the word monster for so much, but I'm not kidding this time. The Maus, which is the super heavy tank, is the most overpowered thing in the game, but it goes only 4 kilometers per hour, which is maximum pain. So You know, you would get this, and then it will, like, mostly, like, in infantry can go faster than this. It's got 10 defense, 74 breakthrough, more than 2 times of the heavy tank, 38 soft attack, 15 soft attack, much more. So, and it's really difficult to produce these. Like, it's 25 production cost, like, let's say, this is 30 production cost, this one has 100. So, you need, 1, 2, 3 times the factories you use to produce the King Tiger to produce the mouse at the same speed. That is very difficult to determine in Hearts of Iron 4. What we're also going to be looking at, if this wasn't man the guns, like after man the guns and fuel without it, this wouldn't be so much of a factor, because you would only use oil while producing the tanks. But now you also need fuel to use the tanks. You're not like using fuel to produce the tanks, but you're also using it to fuel the tanks and use them. You see, 2.4 fuel usage to 10 fuel usage. So like 5 Panzer ones use the fuel of 1 mouse. So there's so much of a difference, and you have to be stacked with oil to use super heavy tanks, because they just consume way too much. And last, we're going to be taking a look at the modern tanks. So the modern tanks are not so widely used in Hearts of Iron 4, because that's way too late game to use them. You can only research them in 1944 to 45, which is too long of a time. And instead you can just like use the latest heavy tank version, which is in 1943, and you might even get a bonus to research it all the way in 1942, which is very easy compared to, you know, waiting until 1944 to produce this tank. But at the same time, this tank is also amazing. It's got 84 breakthrough, 98% hardness. It's more than the best heavy tank you can get. 40 soft attack, 35 soft attack, 32 hard attack, 40 hard attack, because you know, modern tanks are like much smaller compared to heavy tanks, so their hard attack is not as good as the heavy tanks. 10 kilometers per hour, 6 kilometers per hour, much speedier, and 5 fuel usage to 4.4. It uses even more fuel, but it is really easy to produce these compared to super heavy tanks. Well, now, as we took a look at the normal tanks, now we're going to take a look at the semi-tanks. So what am I saying with semi-tanks? The semi-tanks in this game are called the SPAA, the SPGs, and the SPDs. So, these are divided into 3 different sections. The SPD is the Light Tank Destroyer, ladies and gentlemen, and is a very determining factor if you're actually building late game medium or heavy tanks. At the same time, we've got the SPG, which is the self-propelled artillery, and we've also got the SPAA, which is the self-propelled anti-air gun. So what do these add? These are the tanks you can research and produce next to your normal tanks, and can add them to your templates. So what do SPGs do? So this is the you know, this is the medium tank destroyer. Let's talk about this one first. So it's called the Sturmgeschütz. The tank destroyers, when you add them, give a huge amount of extra piercing and extra hard attack against your enemies. So you can kill enemy tanks much quicker and much easier using the SPDs. The SPGs, also known as the self-propelled artillery, gives you even more soft attack, as it gives you 42 soft attack on these things, and they're very quick as well. At the same time, they don't have so much piercing, and at the same time, they don't have so much hard attack, because all you can do is, artillery is used against infantry. At the same time, anti-tank guns are used against tanks. So artillery is pretty much anti-infantry in this game. And then we've got the SPAA. Well, SPAs don't do so much, because during the game, if you don't have the air supremacy, it's just going to literally kill you, the enemy. But at the same time, it really helps you to give you that nice 32 air attack. And if you improve it, you can even go up to 43, which is the Flak Panzer, etc. Now, we're going to be taking a look at the divisions themselves. Here, I've created 5 different divisions, as you can see here on the top. This is the heavy tank, the light tank, the modern tank, the medium tank, and the super heavy tank. Now, starting off with the heavy tank. Here, my friends, is the heavy tank division we have produced. It's got 435 soft attack, and at the same time it's got 424 hard attack. 6.6 kilometers of speed, 274 HP, and we're going to be taking a look at all the factors determining these. So, in templates in Hearts of Iron 4, especially in tank templates, it is very important to keep your organization up. That's why you need to pair up the tanks with something like motorized infantry or mechanized infantry. You have to pair your tanks up with something like them, so you can get even more organization into your divisions. Because if you lose the organization, let's say you have too little organization and there's too many divisions to go through, you'll just use up all of your organization, and your division is going to die the same second, which is going to be a bad situation for you, and like the attack is going to fail. So you need to be careful. In Hearts of Iron 4, it is very important to get your divisions on the combat width, which is adjacent to the number 80. So you can get 20, 16, 40, which are adjacents and the multiples, dividers of 80. And you can just get, as you can see, a total width of 80 if you can fit 4 20-width divisions. So that's going to be your thing here. So, heavy tanks, as we talked about it, have so much hard attack and so much soft attack, but go slowly compared to medium tanks. So at the left you need to add the engineer company, so it gives you even more breakthrough, even more soft attack, and at the same time even more retrenchment and defense. The support artillery, you might actually change these with the motorized ones. You can get motorized artillery instead of support artillery and change it with like signal company or something. But it's not really like too much of a thing to do this, because the division itself is just this destroyer division. Now we're going to move on to the light tank. So in Hearts of Iron 4, sadly there is some kind of stupidness that you have to keep the light tank template as small as you can, which is kind of a meta, because if you keep the light tank template as small as you can just use your light tanks much effectively. Because if you keep making a template bigger for a light tank, then you're going to start having problems with speed. And light tanks, literally, all they do is speed. You have to be very quick and pacey with your light tanks. You can just still add some, motorized infantry or mechanized, but mechanized is going to slow you down, so add motorized infantry. You're going to be much quicker. As you can see, 12 kilometers per hour, that's almost 2 times the speed of the heavy tank, which is something very different, and you have to respect it, because light tanks are pretty much used for going around the enemy, make some quick encirclements. Let's compare. See, 435 soft attack and 424 hard attack to 163 soft attack, 64 hard attack, but 394 breakthrough and 1,000 breakthrough. Well, they're not the ones to use in battle, but instead the ones to use to make encirclements. We're going to go on with the modern tank. The modern tank, as we all know it, are the adjacent of a heavy tank and the medium tank, and you can use it very clearly against the enemy. But it's really difficult to research these, and it takes so much time, because it's the base of origin is 1945. So even if you slide way too much into late game, then you might research them. Let's say you're playing an online game and the game slid to 1947, you might just research the modern tanks and use them very quickly. But as it's too much late game, it's not really nice of a thing to research these. These have so much breakthrough, and at the same time they have meh hard attack, but they have so much soft attack, which is an important factor, again, in Hearts of Iron 4, if you're fighting against infantry. As we all said, soft attack for infantry, hard attack for tanks. And now we're going to be going on with the medium tank. The medium tanks are pretty much one of the metas of Hearts of Iron 4, because normally what you would do in an online game, or even a single player game, just make medium tanks. Let's say you're playing Germany, okay? At the beginning of the game, you get 3 light tanks, and those lights can be used against Poland. And then once you produce enough, you will just switch lights to medium tanks, and then use them against France and the African campaigners. They don't use so much supply compared to the heavy tanks. And last, you know, you're going to start invading the Soviets at like 1941 to 42. And then, once you produce enough, just switch all the mediums to heavy tanks to obliterate the Soviet front. And that is the thing you must do, like if you're playing in an online game or even a single player game. So then you can have much powerful of an army. And now comes the super heavy tank division. So super heavy tanks, as we all talked about it, is also very meta because it's not really easy to produce these guys, but they require so much less equipment compared to what we have. You know, we need 400 heavy tanks compared to 150 super heavy tanks because it takes like 17,000 to 17,203. Meanwhile, it takes 12,000 to 14,000 to produce a heavy tank division like this. So it's really difficult to produce super heavy tanks, and at the same time, they're not something to use if you're even playing an online game. Even if in an online game, it is just way too much of a work to produce these guys. And then we're going to be as I talked about the SPAs, the SPGs, and the SPDs. Now we're going to be taking a look at the basic semi-tank division and the semi-tank 2. So the basic semi-tank division is what I did instead of normally what you would create is something like this, like a solid tank and a solid modern motorized infantry side. Instead, you would just modify your tank side with some semi-tanks. So as you can see here, we added 2 medium SP artilleries, removed 1 normal medium tank, and added 2 medium tank destroyers to make it still fully with. And yeah, actually, this is what you would use in like so meta. But in online games, they mostly work because mostly what the, normally, like, let's say you play in the UK, you're not going to be way too ready for war. I know because a friend of mine actually did it so many times. They just spam out divisions without support equipment, and then you just put, the artilleries, the SP artilleries, and the amount of soft attack you get just decides everything. And that's the thing. Now I'm going to be taking our final tank template, which is semi-tank 2. Instead of what they did last time, I removed the medium tank destroyers and instead added, removed 1 of the medium tank destroyers and then added 2 SPAAs. So as you can see, it's got 101 air attack. Meanwhile, this guy only has 15 air attack. Well, the air attack is just going to be literally, let's say you're fighting against an enemy, they have so much CAS all over you, and as you all know, CAS just does so much damage to you. To prevent that damage, you just use the SPAA tanks, and that is what you're going to do to save the day, because, the amount of air attack you get, and let's say if you have like a crawling air force, it is just going to be easy for you to use your tank divisions. So, in battle, let's do a small comparison here, okay? In battle, in what occasion, which one shall you use? Fighting against like minor countries or like trying to make encirclements, the light tank is what you're looking for. As we all said, they're very quick, they have like very quick go by, and they have organization, etc. They're just very small of a division, so you can easily produce these and just literally obliterate the enemy front line with many encirclements. So, now we're going to be taking a look at fighting against like the Allied faction and fighting in Africa. So fighting in Africa is very difficult if you're using heavy tanks, modern tanks, or super heavy tanks. Fighting in Africa is very difficult. Light tanks won't do it in Africa. Like, let's say you have an Allied faction which would just go ahead, fortify Al Alamein to the final point, where it would be literally impossible for you to break through. And as they don't use so much supply and powerful at the same time, you just use the medium tank divisions. Well, let's say now you're fighting against the Soviet Union in 1941. You have enough medium tanks to spare, and then you just flip over your production to heavy tanks, and then just obliterate the front. That is the one you're looking for. It's the heavy tank. As you all know, as we talked about, a hard attack, soft attack on these guys. They're slow, but they can easily be accompanied by infantry and light tanks, so you can literally just use them to make huge encirclements. And that's just going to be your power. Well, let's say you're going something very meta. You need to do so much damage, and you need so much piercing and breakthrough. Like I said, the Allies D-Day with very beefy divisions. Then what you do is just deploy the the super heavy tank division, and that is what is going to help you do the most of the piercing and most of the attack, and like you can penetrate the enemy front line with these guys really easily. And finally, the medium, not the medium, the modern tank is what you're looking for. If it's late game, you have enough of an industry to produce these guys, etc., etc., then what you're going for has to be the modern tank. And the basic semi-tank divisions like these are what you literally do once you have enough of an industry to produce these guys really easily, and that is what you can do to fight against your enemy. Many different tank template metas can be discovered. All you have to do is to play the game on your own to try to find something different. Anyways, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're going to be back with even more Hearts of Iron 4 content